cheating wife, not a happy life. This is today's story. What's up, everybody? Today, we've brought another awesome story with revenge tales. Feedback is welcome. If this premise works well, I will have other stories that take place at the fertile hole. Let's go today's story. Hi there, everybody, anybody. At the time my adventure began, I was approximately 29M, and she was 23F. We met at a party and clicked immediately. We met through mutual friends, but it was not a setup. It turned out that we had several things in common. Among them was that she worked with my mother at that time. My mother had actually mentioned something to me about her in an attempt to set me up. I had a no setup policy, instead preferring to meet someone on my own without having any expectations from friends or family. It was about this time that I was in the process of buying my first house. After we had dated for about a year, I asked her to move in with me. I knew then that I was going to marry her and was waiting for the perfect moment to propose. As luck would have it, I had a business convention in New York City towards the end of the summer, and I thought that would be a great time to ask her to marry me. We were engaged on a lovely evening at the top of the Empire State Building. We were married about a year later. Now, she had a full-time job that didn't pay terribly well, so she decided to get her master's degree and ended up spending the first 3 of our anniversaries overseas in an immersive graduate program that would allow her to get her degree without missing any work. She was a teacher, obviously. I looked at it as a great opportunity to ease into married life. I was always very active in the summer with a serious passion for golf. The golf season where I live is not very long, usually about 5 months long, so I took every opportunity to play while she was gone. When I got home from golf in the evening, we would talk on the phone. It was evening for me and morning for her, but we still spoke at least every couple of days. During one of our calls in her 3rd and final year of grad school, she mentioned that we needed to talk when she got back home. I was immediately apprehensive and asked her if anything was wrong, or if there was something I needed to know about. Of course, I instantly thought she might have strayed, and I asked if our talk had anything to do with another guy. She denied this and said that she missed talking to me and just wanted to spend some time with me alone, so we could catch up on everything she had missed the past summer. Now, I trusted her completely and took her at her word that there was no other guy, so I filed it in the back of my mind. Not forgotten, but on a back burner, so to speak. When she got home, it was just like she said. We spent hours talking and making love to make up for lost time. At last her overseas studies were over, and we could begin thinking about starting a family. We were both very excited at the prospect of adding children to our family and building memories we could cherish forever. Fast forward about 15 years. By then we had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. During this time we also dealt with health problems that had begun to plague her. After a couple of years, she was diagnosed with epilepsy and required surgery to remove the affected area of her brain. It was a stressful time. The kids were young, and I was working a lot as well as trying to reassure her that everything was going to be fine. Ultimately, the surgery went extremely well. After several months of recuperating, she was finally able to drive again and was excited to reconnect with friends. She gibber frequenting of friends' house parties with her sisters. She nearly always gibber me to go along, but frankly, I wasn't always up for it. Going to the party meant getting home late, and then having to take our gibber home, which meant I wasn't in bed until about half an hour after her. When I did go, I always had a great time and jabber with a friend in a similar field to mine. We gibber about work, sports, and drank a lot of beer. One weekend, she was getting ready to go over to the friend's house, and I gibber she was wearing a new bra and panties. I asked her what was so special about that evening, and she said that she was gibber of wearing old underwear and wanted something nice to wear when she went out. It made gibber sense. She had dealt with a major health scare and wanted to enjoy time with friends and feel pretty again. I got it. It made gibber sense. She then asked if I was going to the party, and I admitted that it sounded like fun, and that it would be great to spend some time with her more, or less, gibber with her, and not having to attend to our kids' constant needs. She then starts in about me not having to go if I didn't want to. That the party was going to be smaller with just a few girls jabber out drinking and talking. I agreed to stay home with the gibber and let her have time with her friends. By 2 a.m. she had still not returned home, and I began to get gibber. She wasn't answering her phone, and I feared that she might have been pulled over after gibber too much. So I jabber in my car and started to drive over to her friend's house to find out what was going on. As I headed down the street, she passed me in her car, so I gibber around and followed her back home. When I got inside, I asked her what the hell was going on, and she said her gibber was dead, and she had lost track of time. I was gibber with her. I told her it was gibber of her to be away from home that late when we had young children. What if something had gibber to one of them, or me, or her? She said I was gibber, and that we should just go to bed. I was still gibber the next morning, but I figured it was just an honest mistake, so I just let life go on. Several weeks later, we were in bed during a weeknight. I had to work the next morning, and I was ready for sleep. For those of you with multiple kids, you understand how tired I was after a long day of work and managing the kids when I got home. She was constantly doing schoolwork that she brought home, so it was largely up to me to take care of them. One night she was on her phone texting a friend, I assume. She was giggling from time to time, and I asked her what was so funny. She said it was nothing, but I was curious and asked to see her phone. She said it was none of my business, closed her phone, and turned off the light. Alarm bells finally started going off in my brain, and I asked her if she was having an affair, to which she laughed and said of course not. Because I trusted her so much I dropped it, but still felt uneasy. A couple of months later, we took a trip to Texas. Up to that time, she was still going to parties with her friends, so it wasn't like anything had dramatically changed. We had a great time with the kids, but it was nice to get back home. Once we got settled in and unpacked, started laundry, etc., I went downstairs to my man cave and watched a little TV while the laundry went through the washer and dryer. She came downstairs and said we needed to talk. I was a little annoyed because we had just spent the last 5 days together and had plenty of chances to talk alone. I know she could see I was annoyed, and then she dropped the bomb. She admitted she was having an affair. It took me 2 guesses to figure out who her app was. It was my old friend from the parties she was constantly going to without me. It was so humiliating. I knew the guy well enough to know he was bragging about it with his co-workers and friends, which made me the cuckold. I asked her to leave the house, but she said the house was just as much hers as it was mine, so she would not leave. I decided to leave, but she begged me not to go because she didn't want the kids knowing something was wrong. I asked her if there had been any other apps, and she responded that she had kissed a guy during one of her graduate summers overseas. Now, I might be dumb, but I'm not stupid. She was the kind of woman who would not admit to cheating so long ago when we were first married. At that time, she was a bit of a drinker who would let her wild side show after a few glasses of wine. So, it wasn't a stretch to assume kissing meant sex. I asked if she was planning on moving in with her app. Once I started doing the math and putting all the subtle clues together, I figured her affair had been going on for at least 6 months and likely more. She told me that once she told him that she admitted to the affair, he broke up with her, and a tear streamed down her face. Whether it was because of shame or the fact he was using her does not matter now. So now I'm in a total spiral, and I decided to leave the house. I asked her how she could love me and be so willing to break her vows. She responded with the tried and true, "I don't know if I ever really loved you." A true dagger to the heart. I left my home and soon after my marriage. I bought a house a couple of miles from my home so I could stay close to the kids. I spent most of the next couple of years avoiding her at all costs, even though I had to co-parent and had no way of removing all contact with her. Then came COVID. I got a terrible case and spent a month at home feeling like I was going to die most of the time. I recovered, But I dealt with the COVID aftermath for a long time. I was constantly fatigued and had little energy to do much, but sleep when I wasn't at work. Then I got cancer. It was caught early, but I still required surgery, chemo, and radiation therapy. I've recovered and lost a lot of weight that needed to be lost. I've got to admit that I haven't felt this good in a long, long time. During my illnesses, she would bring soup or whatever I was capable of eating. Secretly, I resented her taking care of me so much. I figured that it was her way of trying to atone for the absolute hell I went through after finding out about her affairs. I was seriously suicidal for quite a time, and I still get depressed enough that it still comes to mind every so often, even 10 years later. Yes, I've been single for the last 9 years and on my own for the last 10. My life is better now. I've got good friends who I can golf and drink beer with. I've got a great dog who sleeps in my bed almost every night. When one of my kids is home from college, my dog will sleep with him. I guess I'm always second fiddle. Lol. I have lost the future that I thought I would have. Growing old with my wife, spending more time with the kids, and enjoying my retirement. That's mostly vapor now. I still see the kids, but my finances have not recovered and retirement seems like a fantasy now. Not for her, of course. She got the house and child support, leaving me to struggle with making ends meet every single month. I have also lost all trust in women and decided that I will never again be in any kind of serious relationship with a woman. The price is too steep to consider, and I will never be able to trust a woman again. Update. I would like to ask for opinions here, especially from women. When we had been married for about 5 years, we were pregnant with our first child. I worked at a new car dealership as a sales manager. My general manager was a subtle combination of nerd and asshole. On top of that, he was a terrible GM. One of his brilliant ideas was to have a midnight sale. The entire sales staff was required to work from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., which made for a 16-hour day. Towards the end of the day, the guy who was our finance manager asked me for a favor. He asked if he could use my credit card to reserve a motel room, so he didn't have to drive an hour and a half to his home. He was married at that time, and he was also having an affair with his assistant. His credit was absolutely terrible. I personally watched one of cars get repossessed, so it didn't surprise me he couldn't get a credit card. I finally agreed and let him reserve the room. Fast forward a month when the credit card statement came in the mail. My wife was completely certain I had an affair with one of the office girls and was crimson red with anger. One of those girls asked me to get a room once. I told her I was married and wouldn't do that to my wife. She was my best friend. The woman rolled her eyes like she had asked an idiot to spend some quality time with her. Anyway, I tried to reassure her it was completely innocent and that I had done a favor for a friend. I even went so far as to have the guy call her to explain what happened. She never believed it. She chewed on that bone for years and even used it to justify her affair. I told her to do the math. I was off at midnight and drove an hour home and went to bed. I didn't have time to have an affair. So, ladies and gents that feel like responding, what is your opinion? In hindsight, I made an innocent mistake. Still, I had always been faithful to her. I'm a fairly pragmatic kind of guy. I told her, why on earth would I want 2 women when one was all I could handle? I meant it when I said it. I will never understand why people cheat. 90% will probably get caught or admit to cheating. The app would eventually want a side commitment, which would be like having a second wife. No thanks. I'm very risk adverse. Thanks for watching my video, and I hope you enjoy it. Comments and suggestions are very much welcome.